Welcome to the Awakening Women Show. I'm your host, Leanne Oaten, a former counselor with a background in counseling psychology. I'm a mentor for high-achieving, ambitious women with over 13 years in the mental health and empowerment space. I've guided hundreds of women and have influenced over 100,000 through my platforms, podcast, and other courses, programs, and mentorship. I'm also the creator of the Relationship Clarity program, formerly known as End the Cycle, which you will hear me mention a lot of times as we go through the episodes. This program is to help women break free from destructive relationship cycles and come to clarity and power about their next step. This show is for the woman who knows her relationship struggles go deeper than the usual conflict. You know there's something more going on, but you can't quite nail it down or pinpoint what that is. You'll find clarity here, empowerment, truth, and validation. Clarity on whether your relationship can be healed or whether it's time to reclaim your life and move forward. What started as me sharing my own experiences quickly became a movement because the truth is, so many ambitious, successful women are stuck in confusing and draining relationship dynamics while trying to rise in every other area of their life, career, motherhood. This is you, you're not alone, and you don't have to keep living this way. Inside this podcast, you'll hear some of my most downloaded episodes, plus fresh content designed to help you break patterns, reclaim your wholeness, and decide once and for all if this relationship is where you belong. I'm so glad you found this space. Let's dive in. Welcome to this episode of the Awakening Women podcast. This is a throwback edition where I am replaying some of my top downloaded episodes in the archives. This one I'm talking about 5 things that are never going to change if you are experiencing them in your relationship. What happens with women who are in addictive love patterns is they don't understand the difference between changes that can be made in a relationship and things that are not changeable. And so they spend a really long period of time trying to change things that are unchangeable. Not only do they do that, but they spend a disproportionate amount of time, energy, focus, and effort trying to fix a relationship. They're very, very focused on the man with an obsessive quality. This is the hallmark of an addictive love relationship. When you are fixated on them, fixing them, changing them, being something different for them, making them understand, you are obsessed with that alone. It takes over a great deal of your mental bandwidth to the point where you're finding it difficult to focus at work, in motherhood, in other roles that you have. And it may even be impacting your ability to keep going with the success that you've created because it's pulling on your energy. It's pulling your energy away from where it needs to be. And this can start to impact women's success, their livelihoods, their finances, because everything that they've built starts to become wobbly because the foundation is wobbly. The foundation is you and it's your environment. And so if you identify with any of these 5 things, and even worse, if you identify with all of them, then you need to get into my free intensive. This is a 3-part video series that talks more about what are the signs of love addiction. Could this be what's going on underneath your reason for knowing that you need to leave, but you still stay? No matter how bad it gets, you continue to try and fix it and work on it and change him. And you keep giving him all the changes. You're bouncing back and forth from leaving to staying. Maybe even you've tried to leave before and you keep going back. What's behind all this insanity? You must be wondering, right? Because you've been able to create success in other areas. This area continues to be the one area you can't seem to figure out. And you're in a relationship you know is not good. So these are all hallmarks of this pattern I have witnessed for over 13 years with women. And what I have learned from this is that some women do become addicted to the emotional patterns when we talk about emotional addictions. And so we have to understand that it's not up to us to get any person or man to be anything different than they already are. If they don't want to be, they will not be. And so if you have been dealing with these patterns that you're about to learn in a relationship that you've been in for a good amount of time, to be able to see it's a pattern, right? These are not one-off things, or it's occasionally a thing where a guy is insensitive or he doesn't validate you in the moment or, anything like that. This is more a pattern that you have been experiencing despite your greatest attempts to articulate and communicate the problem as you see it with no change. Or it's intermittent change, but it goes right back to the same stuff. So these are all hallmarks of a toxic and potentially addictive relationship. I'm not here to diagnose anybody, but I am here to help you wake up. I want you to see what's really underneath your continuing fixation on trying to fix a man, because we cannot fix a man. We cannot turn a man from abusive to non-abusive. It's not possible to do that. And women are still trying, and they still think that they're leaving their soulmates when they have just been put through hell for years or decades with a man that's clearly not good for them, but they think that they might be making a mistake. So if you are experiencing these things, get yourself into my 3-part intensive. Once you watch those classes, they're short and they're really to the point. You can take the love addiction self-assessment to see what your score is. If it doesn't resonate, you're not experiencing any of those things, great. At least you can rule that out. But my guess is if you've been cycling in these patterns for your lifetime, whether with one or many men, you're going to identify on some level that this is what's going on. So I urge you to take that, even if right now you're listening to this, you're a successful woman, nobody wants to be identifying as they have addictive patterns, but I urge you to kind of just push past the denial, push past the resistance that this could very well be what's going on. That's the missing puzzle piece of everything that you've tried so far, and open your mind to the possibility, because what that actually does is it brings emotional relief that this isn't actually a you thing. It is, in the sense you're responsible for your side of the street and your own unhealthy patterns, but fixing the relationship and why it is the way it is. It's a dynamic, it's a co-addiction, because he also has his own addictive patterning as well. And so you're both participating in the dance. So this is where I get women into shifting their own patterning to completely dismantle the relationship dynamic basically as it is. So it cannot continue the way it is. Something will shift for sure when you start to shift. So I'm going to play that episode now, where you're going to learn those 5 things that are never going to change. I've never ever seen them change with all the women I've worked with over the years. And these are the behaviors that most women, when they come into work with me, they have been experiencing for sometimes decades. So we have to be able to see our own dysfunction when we are witnessing and experiencing something over and over and over and over again, and then we still keep trying to change it. We think it's going to end up somewhere different when we keep doing the same thing. One thing I will say is, if you listen to these 5 things and it's coming from a professional counselor who has done counseling and coaching for 13 years, 6 of those has been with awakening women immersed in patterning that these women are experiencing that does not change. In fact, it spirals into getting worse and worse and worse. So if you're hearing this coming from me, someone who has the experience, expertise, and deep level of understanding of these relationships, and I'm telling you these things are not going to change, and you go back to doing the same thing, go into denial, don't bother taking the self-assessment, don't consider getting mentorship or getting some serious help for this particular problem from someone who understands it and can help you through it, then that is an indicator of emotional addiction in itself. It is when someone external that knows what they're talking about is telling you, you've already heard what all the toxic signs are and you're still there. So that is a very big indicator of an addictive component right then and there. And so my goal is to help you wake up, awakening women. That's why we're here. I want you to awaken. When women awaken, things start to move rapidly. And that's what I want for every woman, because when we are living asleep, we're in pain. We're in our own suffering. We're adding to our own struggle. And I don't want that for any woman. I want you to experience awakening so that you can start actually making changes. So I'll play that episode now. Here we go. We're talking about 5 things, if they're happening in your relationship, they cannot be fixed. Okay. These are, I would stand on any hill and say, if your partner or spouse exhibits these behaviors on a regular, recurring basis. I'm not talking about the odd time where they shut down and they go quiet. I'm not talking about the odd time where there's a misunderstanding and maybe you misheard them and they say you're misunderstanding me or you didn't hear me correctly, because maybe that could be true. I'm not talking about those odd times. So when I start talking about these things, some women will say, well, I do this too. I go silent, or I do some of these things too. We have to remember that abuse happens on a continuum, on a continual basis. It's very predictable. It's very cyclical. There are patterns. And until you understand what the cycle is and what those patterns are, then you're going to just think that you're dealing with everyday run-of-the-mill relationship conflicts, right? And then you go talk to your girlfriends who've never experienced this, or a colleague or someone that has never experienced this, and it's like, oh, that's all men. My husband does that too. And oh, it's just, it's just men. But when you have someone that is exhibiting these 5 behaviors on a continual basis, some of these things only need to happen one time to be considered a no deal. It is not fixable. And then it is in your best interest to become strong enough to be able to walk away. And that's why I say, I'm not here to tell you when to leave your relationship. And even when I've worked with women, aside from times when there was physical abuse present, that is the time when ethically that needs to be said. But other than that, I'm not here to tell anyone you need to get out. What I want to say though, is if this is happening, you need to accept that it's not going to change. And then what are you going to do about it if that's the case? Number 1, gaslighting. So this is like being told you're crazy, that you're hearing things, that you didn't hear things, that you heard. You didn't see things that that you saw. They didn't mean it that way. You took it wrong. Something's wrong with you. And that you are overreacting to blatant abuse, lies, disrespect, and absolute disregard for who you are. This will not change ever. This will continue to be an ongoing thing. It does not matter what you try to bring up. Gaslighting will be a very large part of your day-to-day interactions when you try to address something that they did. Nobody wants to be called out on something, but if you're in a relationship with a somewhat healthy, normal, mature guy, and you say, hey, what you said there, it brought this up for me, or I'm feeling this way about it. And then they will take ownership for that, or they will try to, validate, or be at least like, oh, I see where you're coming from. That isn't how I intended it. That's not what I meant. However, I'm sorry. And I can see how that it would have come across that way. And then they work to not do that thing again, whatever it is. Okay, that's the key right there. But when someone is gaslighting you, they're trying to mess with your mind to think that it...
How many times have you wished you could be in 2 places at once? With Wix, you practically can. Wix's website builder is packed with powerful AI tools to make running your business online easier. Build a full site just by talking with AI. Get an AI agent to manage your sales and marketing. Or work like a 10-person team, even if it's just you. So you don't need superpowers to get everything done. You just need Wix. Try it now for free at Wix.com.
You're a podcast listener, and this is a podcast ad heard only in Canada. Reach great Canadian listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience with Libsyn Ads. Email Bob at Libsyn.com to learn more. That's BOB@LIBSYN.com.
It didn't actually ever happen in the first place. Okay, so that is a very dangerous thing for us women, very dangerous to our health, to be living in a relationship where there is ongoing gaslighting, because gaslighting is mental and emotional abuse, and it will very certainly destroy your mental health along with it, because it is very insidious, and you have to have the right anchors and the right supports to be able to stay in your reality. Number 2, stonewalling, silent treatment. If your partner has a pattern of shutting down and going cold when you're trying to communicate, and then gives you the silent treatment because you brought up their behavior, or you said no, or you set a boundary, this is not a workable relationship. Now, I'm not talking about, like I said, times where you shut down and you go quiet and you don't want to talk and you're not responding to text, but this is more of a protective thing because of how you've been treated. I'm talking about this happens when you try to discuss the relationship issues. You are attempting to repair, fix, express something that's gone on in the relationship, and they respond to that by going silent. This also could be boundary setting, when you start to draw your boundaries and draw a line in the sand and own your high value needs and realize that you're worth more than what you're being treated like. Then you will likely see this stonewalling behavior, or when you try to hold them accountable, which you cannot. You did this, you said that, I have it word for word, I wrote it in my notes, I recorded it, whatever it may be. They're going to shut down, they're going to act disinterested, they're going to start scrolling on their phone, looking away, or they'll get up right in the middle of your talking and walk out of the room. And usually it will be something like, I can't do this with you, I'm not going to argue with you, I'm not doing this, you always have a problem. And it shuts the conversation down. So the stonewalling term comes from, you feel like you're talking to a wall because there's no interaction. There's no two-way conversation. That is not workable. Someone that is doing that on a regular basis and will not learn the tools, will not learn how to work through that discomfort, to be there and be emotionally mature enough to work through things with you, that is not going to change. Number 3, plays the victim. Everything negative is never their fault. They're never accountable to their behavior, and they'll never be a safe and secure place for you because they're never willing to see that they have done something wrong. So whatever it may be that you bring up, it always ends up being about a poor me type of scenario. They're not there to learn and grow and do better. Number four is cheating. This is obvious. However, I have worked with many women over the years who stayed through blatant abuse that they were aware of. It has happened. It does happen. And some women, it's because they don't quite see how bad it is, or they aren't willing to see how bad it is. Some women are just wanting to turn a blind eye to it because they don't like what that means, if that's the case, if their partner is cheating. So if your partner has any history or pattern of infidelity, it's not going to magically get better. So don't kid yourself if suddenly they're like trying to be a changed man. They flip the script to act like they've seen the light. 99% of the time, they just get better at hiding it. They're not actually not doing it. Number 5 is addictions to alcohol, drugs, porn, gambling, literally anything. Addictions that destroy families, relationships, health. That's how we can identify an addiction, by the way, is how many areas of this person's life are being impacted by that addiction, right? I could say, I think I have a bit of an addiction to chocolate, but like the dark chocolate. Don't give me milk chocolate because it's one of those things that once it's triggered and it's there, I just keep eating it. So I can't have that in the house. But dark chocolate, a little bit of that every day. Is that harming anyone? No. Is it harming me? Probably not in the quantities that I have it, because if I have dark chocolate, I only have a little bit at a time. Now, if I was binging candy all day and I was overweight and had diabetes coming and health issues and all that, that's going to impact me. And that's also going to impact my daughters, whether it's through them seeing that happening with me, or that I'm not going to be here for them for very long if I am not taking care of myself, okay? This is kind of a superficial example, but it still is an example. Is that something that you would break up with someone over? Maybe. If there's someone that was visibly like eating terrible food, they were obese, they were unhealthy, they weren't exercising, not looking after themselves, and that was their addiction, that could be a deal breaker, right? So just look at whatever it is and ask yourself, how many areas of life is this person being impacted? So in this case, your partner, by this behavior. So if it's gambling, how is this impacting one or more areas? So that's how we diagnose addictions in the counseling field, is how many areas are being impacted. And if you were told you had to stop now, could you? And most times people would not be able to. If it's smoking or things like that, like, no way, you're not taking my ciggies away from me. Do a filter check on that one. But I really believe that if someone is addicted to alcohol, they're an alcoholic, they drink in excess, they drink multiple times a week, they get drunk, they're watching porn as an addictive outlet, they're doing any type of drugs, they're gambling family money away, it's not going to get better by you nagging. And reversing addictions takes self-mastery of the one who's addicted. They will not stop their addictions for you, for any woman, for any person, even for their children. You need to expect more of the same and spend the rest of your life mothering and hovering over them to make sure they're behaving properly if you choose to stay with someone who is an addict. Now, with addiction, I have someone in my life that I'm very close to that has overcome a pretty serious addiction. So it's not that it's not possible, but it didn't come from anyone around them nagging and being worried, and even just things around them falling apart. Because when you're addicted, you don't see the cause and effect. That all of this is going wrong in my life because of my addiction. No, it's everyone else, right? And so that's what you will see. And often what you witness with someone who comes out of an addiction like that is they start to take that self-accountability, because they have to do that work in order to break the addiction. Because the addiction is a way that they abandon self, avoid, numb, distract. They don't want to see all of that. They don't want to see where they're responsible for destroying their own lives or the things that they don't want to look at. And so you will see oftentimes people who overcome addictions, it's a rare thing. Honestly, it's rare that they do this on their own without threats, without a court order or something like that, right? People that actually get the memo and get it. They have that awakening and realize, oh my God, I'm going down a really bad path. They actually tend to become very much more evolved human beings, because they have to do that work to stay on that path of sobriety or being away from their addictions. So this is my quick and dirty list. Now, there are other things, obviously, okay? Like if you've got a guy that's raging and yelling in the home, yelling at you, yelling at the kids, throwing things, creating a hostile environment, that's a hell no, right? There are just so many things women put up with that is just, it's a actual reason to walk away. When there is abuse, hostility, addiction, those are all like, here's your permission slip to walk away. And I know it's not that easy just to do that the moment you discover this, or that you start to see that that's what's happening. It's not easy to just say, okay, well, I've got kids and all this history, to just realize that I need to walk away. And especially with us high achievers, we're the leader types. We don't give up very easily. When we have a goal, when we have something that we're trying to accomplish, we do not give up easily. Even if everyone around you is going, what are you doing? Just give up. Just do that. You don't do it. You keep going because you have a goal. And so if that's what you're experiencing, you need to recognize that you're misusing your energy. You're misusing your gifts by putting it toward trying to rehabilitate someone who has no interest in doing this work whatsoever. And you've seen that through their actions. Okay, so now you know about those 5 behaviors that are never going to change. You have choice. You can keep going and go back to all of that. Pretend that it's not as bad as it is. Pretend he's still your soulmate. Pretend that it's fixable, and go on with what you've been doing. We all have choice, right? Every human has the power of choice. Or you can take the next step. So check out that boot camp, take it, do the self-assessment. And then if you're wanting mentorship, get yourself on the wait list for the collective. I don't know where you are at listening to this, whether we're open or not. If we're not open for enrollment, you'll get a chance to join the waitlist to be notified when we open again. This is my high-level mentorship space for successful high-earning women. This is for women who have success in their material realm, the financial realm, and the career realm, but they're struggling in their relationships. They're very powerful in those other areas, but they lose their power in their relationship. So we are breaking through these paradigms, breaking through into new identities in this space, and women are having and experiencing rapid shifts, rapid changing. Yes, it's uncomfortable. It's not always easy, but let's rip the Band-Aid off and actually just deal with what needs dealing with. And then you have the support around you as you're navigating these next steps. So head to the link in the show notes, and if we're open for enrollment, you will be invited to enroll. If we're not, you'll be invited to join the waitlist, and you'll be notified when we open once again. All right. I hope this episode has been helpful for you, and I'll chat with you in the next one. Bye for now.
Delta Airlines just turned 100 and is already shaping the next century of flight with the Delta Sustainable Skies Lab. Here, they're building the future of flight. Think electric air taxis and next-gen aircraft aiming to cut fuel burn significantly. And this isn't just future talk. Today, their fleet of Boeing 737s have marine-like finlets designed to reshape airflow that reduces drag. The future of travel is more sustainable, and Delta's leading the way. Learn more at delta.com/sustainability.